All right, we are coming up on 8 o'clock. So, let's go ahead and settle in, get comfortable, and look to start something new. Or is it very old? Well, anyway. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is our first and probably only night of reading Beowulf, the epic poem of the Anglo-Saxons. It's one of the oldest pieces of narrative to come out of the European West. This has been adapted over and over through the years, and pretty much done to death in the last 2 decades or so. But I imagine, well, I know for certain, that many of these adaptations and reimaginations are much more reimaginations than faithful to the original. So, I thought, given that there were some questionable decisions in the voices chosen and the direction given in The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, it would be a good time to do something that I can do in a little bit more of a natural voice. Epic poems lend themselves very well to that. There's not much dialogue going on, and more just the narrator espousing everything there is. And, you know what? That sounds like a good time to me. I did look ahead a little bit. This does move very quickly through the percentages as we go through, so we are likely to run a little short tonight. And after how long we ran last night, I'm okay with that. Now, one of the fun bits about Beowulf is that this is one of those older-than-time sort of pieces, where the author themselves is lost to time. We don't know who the original author of Beowulf was. It's been translated and reinterpreted many times over the years, but there's never been a proper attribution. So unlike the Iliad and the Odyssey, where we have Homer, which presumably was the principal and only author of those works, there's not really an equivalent for Beowulf, which sort of adds to the mystery and adds to the experience. Not knowing that who or where exactly it came from, well, we know where, but we don't know whom it came from, sort of alludes itself very well to the reinterpretation that we see so often, whether they be still named Beowulf as they're adapted, or whether it be a reimagining by another author, someone who has their own twists. Yes, the Zemeckis adaptation was a thing. There were choices made. That's all I will say on that matter. But yes, there have been many adaptations over the years. I know in the early 2000s there were a bunch, and we sort of, it goes in cycles, and Beowulf is a perennial favorite of like the comic medium and a lot of other things. So we'll just have to see how they stack up to the original. And this is the translation by, where did I say that, who did I say the translator was on this? It is John Lesslie Hall was the translator for this. This particular edition was translated in, where was that? I think early 1900s. So this is a modern English translation, and they have shifted it into more of a, they said in their preface that rather than going with a strict direct translation, they converted it into a modern meter, because the meter used in the ancient Anglo-Saxon would have just sounded like prose to us if it was directly translated. So there's been a little bit of liberties taken, but it was done to maintain the feeling, to let it remain as a poem rather than just a story, which there's nothing wrong with either direction to take, but I do appreciate the effort to set it to verse and meter. So, with that, let's go ahead and dive in. This is one that I'm relatively aware of. I do remember reading this in high school myself. God, it's been a long time. But as with most things of the time, I certainly was not paying the attention it was due. So, let's just have some fun with this one. So, Beowulf. Part 1. The Life and Death of Sild. And I will preface this immediately by saying that I am going to butcher most of these names. We should know this by now. We can accept this. It's going to be a tragedy. And you know what? That's fine. That's why we're here. Alright. Lo, the Speardane's glory through splendid achievements. The folk king's former fame we have heard of, how princes displayed then their prowess in battle, oft Sild the saving from scathers in numbers. From many a people their mead benches tore, since first he found him friendless and wretched. The Earl had had terror, comfort he got for it. Waxed neath the welkin, on world honor gained, till all his neighbors o'er sea were compelled to bow to his bidding and bring him their tribute. An excellent atheling. After was born him a son and heir, young in his dwelling, whom Godfather sent to solace the people. He had marked the misery malice and had caused them, that reaved of their rulers they wretched had erstwhile long been afflicted. The Lord, in requital, wielder of glory, with world honor blessed him. Famed was Beowulf, far spread the glory of Sild's great son in the lands of the Danemen. So the carle that is young, by kindness is rendered the friends of his father, with fees in abundance, must be able to earn that when age approacheth. Eager companions aid him requitingly, when war assaults him serve him as liegemen. By praiseworthy actions must honor be got 'mong all of the races. At the hour that was fated, Sild then departed to the All-Father's keeping. Warlike to wend him, away then they bear him, to the flood of the current, his fond loving comrades. As himself he had bidden, while the friend of the Sildings word sway wielded, and the well-loved land prince long did rule them. The ring-stemmed vessel, bark of the atheling, lay there at anchor, icy in glimmer and eager for sailing. The beloved leader lay they down there, giver of rings, on the breast of the vessel, the famed by the mainmast. A many of jewels, of fretted embossings from far lands brought over, was placed near at hand then, and heard I not ever that a folk ever furnished afloat more superbly, with weapons of warfare, weeds for the battle, bills and burnies. On his bosom sparkled many a jewel, that with him must travel on the flush of the flood afar on the current. And favors no fewer they furnished him soothly, excellent folk gems than others had given him, who, when first he was born outward, did send him lone on the main, the merest of infants. And a gold-fashioned standard they stretched under heaven. High o'er his head let the holm currents bear him, seaward consigned him, sad was their spirit, their mood very mournful. Men are not able soothly to tell us, they in halls who reside, heroes under heaven, to what haven he hied. That is part 1, just telling of Sild, Beowulf's forefather, and how the things were set, the kingdom set, and the fall of Sild, and how he was sent off in all pomp and circumstance. And hey, don't remind me that the time between reading something in high school to now is enough for someone to have grown and gotten drunk. without getting in trouble. That's mean. That's hurtful. Part 2. Sild's Successors. Hrothgar's Great Mead Hall. In the boroughs then Beowulf, bairn of the Scyldings, beloved land prince for long-lasting season, was famed mid the folk. His father departed, the prince from his dwelling, till afterward sprang great-minded Healfdene, the Danes in his lifetime. He graciously governed. Grim-mooded, aged, 4 bairns of his body born in succession, woke in the world war troopers' leader, Heorogar, Hrothgar, and Holga the Good. Heard I that Ellen was Ongentheow's consort. Oh, here we go. The well-beloved bedmate of the war-sylphing leader. Then glory in battle to Hrothgar was given, waxing of war fame that willingly kinsmen obeyed his bidding, till the boys grew to manhood. A numerous band it burned in his spirit to urge his folk to found a great building, mead hall, grander than men of the era ever had heard of, and in it to share with young and old all of the blessings the Lord had allowed him, save life and retainers. Then the work I find afar was assigned to many races in Middle-earth's regions, to adorn the great folk hall. In due time it happened, early among men, that 'twas finished entirely, the greatest of hall buildings. Heorot he named it, who wide-reaching word-sway wielded among earlmen. His promise he brake not. Rings he lavished, treasure at banquet, towered the hall up high and horn-crested, huge between antlers. Its battle waves bided the blasting fire demon, ere long then from hottest hatred must sword wrath arise for a woman's husband and father. Then the mighty war spirit endured for a season, bore it bitterly, he who bided in darkness. That light-hearted laughter loud in the building greeted him daily. There was dulcet harp music, clear song of the singer. He said that was able to tell from an old earthman's beginnings that Father Almighty Earth had created. The winsome world that the water encircleth set exultingly the sun's and the moon's beams to lavish their lustre on landfolk and races, and earth he embellished in all her regions. With limbs and leaves, life he bestowed, too, on all the kindreds that live under heaven. So blessed with abundance, brimming with joyance, the warriors abided, till a certain one gan to dog them with deeds of direfullest malice. A foe in the hall building, this horrible stranger, was Grendel entitled, the march-stepper famous, who dwelt in the moor fens, the marsh and the fastness. The wan-mooded being abode for a season in the land of the giants, when the landlord and creator had banned him and branded. For that bitter murder, the killing of Abel, all-ruling father, the kindred of Cain, crushed with his vengeance. In the feud he rejoiced not, but far away drove him from kindred and kind, that crime to atone for, meter of justice. Thence ill-favored creatures, elves and giants, monsters of ocean, came into being. The giants that long time grappled with God, he gave them requital. That brings us to the end of part 2. So, we see the introduction of the Great Mead Hall, the rising and bringing together of the people, and as a bad neighbor ever will, they partied a little too loud. Got a little too rambunctious and pissed off the local ne'er-do-well, Grendel. Part 3. Grendel the Murderer. When the sun was sunken, he set out to visit the lofty hall building, how the ring Danes had used it, for beds and benches when the banquet was over. Then he found there reposing many a noble, asleep after supper, Sorrow the heroes, Misery knew not. The monster of evil, greedy and cruel, tarried but little. Fell, and frantic, and forced from their slumbers, 30 of Thanemen thence he departed, leaping and laughing his lair to return to, with surfeit of slaughter sallying homeward. In the dusk of the dawning, as the day was just breaking, was Grendel's prowess revealed to the warriors. Then, his meal-taking finished, a moan was uplifted. Morning cry mighty, the man-ruler famous, the long-worthy atheling sat very woeful, suffered great sorrow, sighed for his liegemen, when they had seen the track of the hateful pursuer, the spirit accursed, too crushing that sorrow. Too loathsome and lasting, no, not longer he tarried, but one night after continued his slaughter, shameless and shocking, shrinking but little from malice and murder. They mastered him fully. He was easy to find, then, who otherwhere looked for a pleasanter place of repose in the lodges, a bed in the bowers, then was brought to his notice, told him truly, by token apparent, the whole Thane's hatred. He held himself after further and faster, who the foeman did battle. So ruled he, and strongly strove against justice, lone against all men, till empty uptowered the choicest of houses. Long was the season, 12 winters time torture suffered, the friend of the Scyldings every affliction. Endless agony, hence it after became certainly known to the children of men, sadly in measures, that long against Hrothgar Grendel struggled, his grudges he cherished, murderous malice many a winter. Strife unremitting, and peacefully wished he life woe to lift from no liegeman at all of the men of the Danefolk, for money to settle. No counsellor needed count for a moment on handsome amends at the hands of the murderer. The monster of evil fiercely did harass, the ill-planning death shade, both elder and younger, trapping and tricking them. He trod every night then the mist-covered moor fens. Men do not know where witches and wizards wander and ramble. So the foe of mankind many of evils, grievous injuries often accomplished, horrible hermit Heort he frequented, gem-bedecked palace, when night shades had fallen. Since God did oppose him, not the throne could he touch. The light-flashing jewel, love of him knew not. 'Twas a fearful affliction to the friend of the Scyldings, soul-crushing sorrow. Not seldom in private sat the king in his council, conference held they what the braves should determine 'gainst terrors unlooked for. At the shrines of their idols often they promised gifts and offerings, earnestly prayed they the devil from hell would help them to lighten their people's oppression. Such practice they used then, hope of the heathen, hell they remembered in innermost spirit, God they knew not. Judge of their actions, all-wielding ruler, no praise could they give the guardian of heaven, the wielder of glory. Woe will be his who through furious hatred his spirit shall drive to the clutch of the fire. No comfort shall look for, wax no wiser. Well for the man who, living his life days, his Lord may face and find defense in his Father's embrace. That's the end of part 3. So, Grendel being just generally a bad mofo. Over and over and over. Harassing the Great Hall and Hrothgar's men, and they can't do anything about it. And they know not the proper God such as is, and make their own obeisances, and nothing seems to be working. We've tried nothing, and nothing is working. Oh no. Part 4. Beowulf goes to Hrothgar's assistance. So Healfden's kinsman constantly mused on his long-lasting sorrow. The battle then clever was not anywise able evils to escape from. Too crushing the sorrow that came to the people. Loathsome and lasting the life-grinding torture, greatest of night woes, so Higelac liegeman, good amid gatemen, of Grendel's achievements. Heard in his home of heroes then living, he was stoutest and strongest and sturdy and noble. He bade them prepare him a bark that was trusty. He said he, the war king, would seek o'er the ocean the folk leader noble, since he needed retainers. For the perilous project, prudent companions chided him little, though loving him dearly. They egged the brave Aethelin, augured him glory. The excellent knight from the folk of the gatemen had liegemen selected, likest to prove them trustworthy warriors, with 14 companions. The vessel he looked for, a liegeman then showed them. A sea-crafty man, the bounds of the country. Past the days fleeted, the float was a water. The craft by the cliff clomb to the prow then, well-equipped warriors. The wave currents twisted, the sea on the sand, soldiers then carried, on the breast of the vessel bright shining jewels, handsomer war-armored heroes, out-shoved then Warman, the wood ship, on its wished-for adventure. The foamy-necked floater, fanned by the breeze, likest a bird, glided the waters. Till 24 hours thereafter, the twist-stemmed vessel had travelled such distance that the sailing men saw the sloping embankments, the sea cliffs gleaming and precipitous mountains, nesses enormous. They were nearing the limits, at the end of the ocean. Up thence quickly the men of the waders clomb to the mainland, fastened their vessel, battle-weeds rattled, war-burnies clattered, the wielder they thanked, that the ways o'er the waters had waxen so gentle. Then, well from the cliff edge, the guard of the Scyldings, who the sea cliffs should see too, saw o'er the gangway brave ones bearing beauteous targets. Armor all ready, anxiously thought he, musing and wondering what men were approaching. High on his horse then Hrothgar's retainer turned him to coastward, mightily brandished. His lance in his hands questioned with boldness. "Who are ye men here, mail-covered warriors, clad in your corslets, come thus a-driving? A high-riding ship o'er the shoals of the waters, and hither, 'neath helmets, have hied o'er the ocean. I have stand guard, standing as warden, lest enemies ever any wise ravage Danish dominions with army of warships. More boldly never have warriors ventured hither to come, of kinmen's approval, word leave of warriors, I ween that ye surely nothing have known, never a greater one of earls o'er the earth have I had sight of. That is one of your number, a hero in armor, no low-ranking fellow adorned with his weapons, but launching them little, unless looks are deceiving. In striking appearance, ere ye pass on your journey, as treacherous spies to the land of the Scyldings, and farther fare, I fully must know now what race ye belongs to, ye faraway dwellers, seafaring sailors, my simple opinion. Hear ye and hearken. Haste is most fitting, plainly, to tell me what place ye are come from." That's the end of part 4. So, Beowulf heard of the troubles and thought, let's go on an adventure, and gathered up a dozen or so friends, 13 friends or so, and they wandered off to Hrothgar's aid. Didn't actually tell anyone that he was coming. And the guards that saw him there is like, one of you looks awful burly there, but what are you guys doing here? A sensible sort. Alright. Do you hear that hum in the background? Somebody's running a snowblower outside and hoping it's not picking it up. I don't see a whole lot of activity on the mic, so I think we're probably okay, but you never know. These things will pick up whatever you don't want them to. Alright, cool. Perfect. Alright, part 5. The gates reach Harrow. The chief of the strangers rendered him answer. 4 troopers leader and word treasure opened. We are sprung from the lineage of the people of Gateland, and Higelack's hearth friends. To heroes unnumbered my father was known, a noble head warrior, Ecthgau titled. Many a winter he lived with the people, ere he passed on his journey. Old from his dwelling, each of the councillors widely mid-world folk well remembers him. We, kindly of spirit, the lord of thy people, the son of King Healfdene, have come here to visit. Folk troops defender, be free in thy councils. To the noble one bear we are a weighty commission. The helm of the Daneman we shall hide, I ween. Not of our message thou knowest, if it happen, as we soothly heard say, that some savage despoiler, some hidden pursuer on nights that are murky, by deeds very direful, mid the Danemen exhibits hatred unheard of, horrid destruction, and the falling of dead from feelings least selfish, I am able to render counsel to Hrothgar. How he, wise and worthy, may worst the destroyer, if the anguish of sorrow should ever be lessened. Comfort come to him, and care waves grow cooler. Or ever hereafter he agony suffers, and troublous distress, while towereth upward, the handsomest of houses, high on the summit. Bestriding his stallion, the strand watchman answered the doughty retainer. The difference surely twixt words and works, the warlike shield-bearer who judgeth wisely well shall determine. This band, I hear, beareth no malice to the prince of the Scyldings. Pass ye then onward with weapons and armor, I shall lead you in person. To my war-trusty vassal's command I shall issue, to keep from all injury your excellent vessel, your fresh-tarred craft gainst every opposer, close by the seashore, till the curved naked bark shall waft back again the well-beloved hero. O'er the way of the water to wade her dominions, to warrior so great 'twill be granted sure in the storm of strife to stand secure. Onward they fared then. The vessel lay quiet, the broad-bosomed bark was bound by its cable, firmly at anchor. The bore signs glistened, bright on the visors vivid with gilding, blaze hardened, brilliant, the bore acted warden. The heroes hastened, hurried the liegemen, descended together, till they saw the great palace. The well-fashioned wassail hall, wondrous and gleaming, mid world folk and kindreds that was widest reputed, of halls under heaven which the hero abode in. Its lustre enlightened lands without number. Then the battle-brave hero showed them the glittering court of the bold ones, that they easily thither might fare on their journey. The aforementioned warrior, turning his courser, quoth as he left them, "'Tis time our faring, Father Almighty, grant you his grace, and give you to journey. Safe on your mission, to the sea I will get me, 'gainst hostile warriors as warden to stand." It's the end of part 5 there. So this is the back and forth between the Coast Guard and the herald for Beowulf, to let them know, hey, we're not coming to raid you, don't worry, because you must remember, these guys, they're basically Vikings. So you gotta watch out. If somebody coming in from the coast on a flat ship, there's a good chance they're not coming in friendly terms. But no, they're not here to raid. They're here for adventure. Alright, part 6. Beowulf introduces himself at the palace. The highway glistened with many-hued pebble, as bypath led the liegemen together. Firm and hand-locked the war-burning glistened, the ring-sword radiant rang mid the armor, as the party was approaching the palace together in warlike equipments. 'Gainst the wall of the building their wide-fashioned war shields they wary did set them. Then the battle shields sturdy benchward they turned them. Then their battle socks rattled, the gear of the heroes. The lances stood up then, all in a cluster, the arms of the seamen, ashen shafts mounted with edges of iron. The armor-clad troopers were decked with weapons. Then a proud-mooded hero asked of the champions questions of lineage. From what borders bear ye your battle shields plated, gilded and gleaming, your grey-coloured burnies, helmets with visors and heap of war lances? To Hrothgar the king I am servant and liegeman, 'mong folk from far lands found I have never. So many of mean more courageous, I ween that from valour no wise as outlaws, but from greatness of soul ye sought for King Hrothgar. Okay, it's a little hard to tell, but literally everyone who sees Beowulf so far, the guard, this guy, everyone is just glazing this man. It's they can't help themselves. Then the strength-famous Earl an answer rendered. The proud-mooded Vader chief replied to his question. Hardy neath helmet, Higelac's mates are we, Beowulf, high-tie. To the bairn of Healfdene, the famous folk leader, I freely will tell to thy prince my commission. If pleasantly hearing he'll grant, we may greet him so gracious to all men. Yeah, that's true. That's just epic poetry. Odysseus got the same sort of treatment, so it's understandable. It is just funny to imagine big Viking guys that are just gushing over someone who's just like, oh man, he's so strong and handsome and courageous. Oh, just a fun little mental exercise. Wulfgar replied then. He was the prince of the Wendels. His boldness of spirit was known unto many, his prowess and prudence. The prince of the Scyldings, the friend lord of Danemen, I will ask of thy journey, the giver of rings as thou urgest me do it, the folk chief famous, and inform thee early, what answer the good one mindeth to render me. You know what, Jimbro is a perfect way to... That is the best way to imagine this. It's a bunch of Jimbros complimenting each other on their gains and hitting a PR. That's perfect. He turned then hurriedly where Hrothgar was sitting, old and hoary, his earlmen attending him. The strength famous went till he stood at the shoulder of the lord of the Danemen, of courteous Danemen, the custom he minded. Wulfgar addressed then his friendly liege lord. Folk of the gatemen, o'er the way of the waters are wafted hither, faring from far lands, the foremost in rank, the battle champions Beowulf title. They make this petition with thee, O my chieftain, to be granted a conference. O gracious King Hrothgar, friendly answer refuse not to give them. In war trappings weeded, worthy they seem, of earls to be honoured, sure the atheling is doughty. Who headed the heroes hitherward coming. It's the end of part 6, wherein Beowulf announces himself, and the whole gaggle of Jimbros are just making a big deal out of it. I'm not going to be able to forget that. That's going to be how it sticks in my head. They're just going to be... That's... I'm not sure if I'm happy for the mental image now, or if it's just poisoned me against Beowulf forever. Both? Both. Part 7. Hrothgar and Beowulf. Hrothgar answered, Helm of the Scyldings. I remember this man as the merest of striplings. His father, long dead now, was Ecthegau titled. Him Hrethel and Gateman granted at home his one only daughter, his brave battle-sodden. His coming but now sought a trustworthy friend. Seafaring sailors asserted it then, who valuable gift gems of the Gateman carried as peace-offering thither, that he 30 men's grapple has in his hand the hero in battle, the holy creator usward sent him. To West Dane warriors, I ween, for to render 'gainst Grendel's grimness gracious assistance. Okay, that was a 4-part alliteration. Alright, Hrothgar, I see what you're about. Let's go. I'm here for it. I shall give to the good one gift gems for courage. Hasten to bid them hither, to speed them, to see assembled this circle of kinsmen. Tell them expressly their welcome in sooth to the men of the Danes. To the door of the building Wulfgar went then. This word message shouted, My victorious liege lord bade me to tell you. The East Danes atheling, that your origin knows he. And o'er wave billows wafted ye welcomer hither. Valiant of spirit, ye straightway may enter. Clad in corslets, cased in your helmets. To see King Hrothgar, here let your battle boards, wood, spears, and war shafts await your conferring. The mighty one rose then, with many a liegeman, an excellent thane group, some there did await them. And, as bid of the brave one, the battle gear guarded. Together they hied them, while the hero did guide them, 'neath Heorot's roof. The high-minded went then, sturdy 'neath helmet, till he stood in the building. Beowulf spake. His byrnie did glisten, his armour seamed over by the art of the craftsman. Hail thou, Hrothgar! I am Hygelac kinsman, and vassal forsooth. Many a wonder I dared as a stripling, the doings of Grendel in far-off fatherland I fully did know of. Seafarers tell us this hall building standeth, excellent edifice, empty and useless to all the earlmen after evenlight's glimmer. 'Neath heaven's bright hues have hidden its glory. This my earls that urged me, the most excellent of them, Carl's very clever, to come and assist thee. Folk leader Hrothgar, fully they knew of the strength of my body. Themselves they beheld me, when I came from the contest, when covered with gore, foes I escaped from where 5 I had bound. The giant race wasted, in the waters destroying, the Nickers by night bore numberless sorrows. The Vaders avenged, woes had they suffered, enemies ravaged, alone now with Grendel. I shall manage the matter with the monster of evil. The giant decided. Thee I would therefore beg of thy bounty, bright Danish chieftain, lord of the Scyldings, this single petition, not to refuse me, defender of warriors, friend lord of folks, so far have I sought thee, that I may, unaided, my earlmen assisting me, this brave-mooded war-band, purify Heorot. I have heard on inquiry, the horrible creature from various rashness recks not for weapons. I this do scorn then, so be Hygelac gracious, my liege lord beloved, lenient of spirit, to bear a blade or a broad-fashioned target. A spear to the onset, only with hand-grip the foe I must grapple. Fight for my life then, foeman with foeman, he fain must rely on the doom of the Lord, whom death layest hold of. I ween he will wish, if he win in the struggle, to eat in the war-hall earls of the Geatfolk. Boldly to swallow them, as of yore he did often, the best of the Hrathmen. Thou needst not trouble a head-watch to give me. He will have me dripping and dreary with gore, if death overtake me. Will bear me off bleeding, biting and mouthing me. The hermit will eat me, heedless of pity, marking the more fens. No more wilt thou need then find me my food, if I fall in the battle. Send Hygelac, the armour that serveth to shield my bosom, the best of equipments, richest of ring mails, till the relic of Frethla, the work of Wayland, goes weird as she must go. So that's the end of chapter, or part 7, wherein Beowulf says, you know what? Hold my mead. I'm going to do this by myself. And you know what? Since Grendel doesn't use weapons and goes around naked, so will I. So we're going to have a mighty, sweaty struggle between a unarmed Beowulf and an unarmed Grendel. And he says, you know what? Don't worry about it. If I lose, I die. If I win, I win. So either way, you don't need to worry about putting me up as guest right. Beowulf is the chaddest of chads. Part 8. Hrothgar and Beowulf continued. Hrothgar discoursed, helm of the Scyldings. To defend our folk and to furnish assistance, thou soughtest us hither, good friend of Beowulf. YouTube decided that I think dong was a step too far, but you know what? Sometimes you do what you gotta do, right? To defend our folk and to furnish assistance, thou soughtest us hither, good friend Beowulf. The fiercest of feuds thy father engaged in. Hithelaf killed he in hand-to-hand conflict mid Wilfingish warriors. Then the Vader's people, for fear of a feud, were forced to disown him. Thence, flying, he fled to the folk of the South Danes, the race of the Scyldings, or the roll of the waters. I had lately begun then to govern the Danemen, the hoard seat of heroes, held in my youth. Rich in its jewels dead was Hergar, my kinsman and elder had earth joys forsaken, Healfdene his bairn, he was better than I am. That feud thereafter, for a fee I compounded, o'er the weltering waters of the Wilfings I sent ornaments old, oaths did he swear me. It pains me in spirit to tell it. What grief in Herod Grendel hath caused me. What horror, unlooked for by hatred unceasing, waned is my warband wasted, my whole troop, weird hath oft cast them to the clutches of Grendel. God can easily hinder the scather from deeds so direful. Oft drunken with beer o'er the ale vessel promised warriors in armour, they would willingly wait on the wassailing benches, a grapple with Grendel, with grimmest of edges. Then this mead hole at morning with murder was reeking, the building was bloody at breaking of daylight. The bench deals all flooded, dripping and bloodied. The folk halls gory. I had fewer retainers, dear beloved warriors, whom death had laid hold of. Sit at the feast now, thy intents unto heroes. Thy victor fame show, as thy spirit doth urge thee. For the men of the Geats then together assembled, in the beer hall blithesome a bench was made ready. There, warlike in spirit, they went to be seated. Proud and exultant, a liegeman did service, who, a beaker embellished, bore with decorum, and, gleaming drink poured, the gleeman sang whilom, hearty in hero. There was heroes rejoicing, a numerous warband of Vaders and Daemon. I don't really have much to comment on that one. They got together and they said, okay, yeah, I'm ashamed of how badly Grendel's got me, but you know what? You can do you. Let the old man do his thing. So, part 9. Wulfherth taunts Beowulf. Wulfherth spoke up, Ecglaf his son, who sat at the feet of the Lord of the Scyldings. opened the jousting, the journey of Beowulf, seafarer doughty, gave sorrow to Ulfeth. The greatest chagrin, too, for granted he never, that any man else on earth should attain to gain under heaven more glory than he. Art thou that Beowulf with Breca did struggle, on the wide sea currents at swimming contended, where to Cuba your pride the ocean ye tried, from vainest vaunting adventured your bodies in care of the waters? And no one was able, nor life, nor loth, one, in the least to dissuade you your difficult voyage. Then ye ventured a swimming, where your arms outstretching the streams did ye cover, the mereways measured, mixing and stirring them, glided the ocean angry the waves were, with the weltering of winter in the water's possession. Ye toiled for a 7 night, he at swimming outdid thee, in strength excelled thee. Then early at morning on the Hetherim's shore the home currents tossed him, sought he thenceward the home of his fathers, beloved of his liegemen, the land of the Brondings, the peace castle pleasant, where a people he wielded, had borough and jewels. The pledge that he made thee, the son of Beanstan, hath soothly accomplished. Then I ween thou wilt find thee less fortunate issue, though ever triumphant in onset of battle, a grim grappling, if Grendel thou darest, for the space of a night nearby to wait for. Beowulf answered, offspring of Ecthegau, there are way too many consonants in a row there. Ecthegau. My good friend Unferth, sure freely and wildly, thou fuddled with beer of Breca hast spoken, hast told of his journey. A fact I allege it, that greater strength in the waters I had then, ills in the ocean, than any man else had. We made agreement, as the merest of striplings, promised each other, both of us then were younkers in years, that we yet would adventure out on the ocean. It all we accomplished, while swimming the sea floods, sword blade unscabbarded. Boldly we brandished, our bodies expected, to shield from the sharks. He sure was unable to swim on the waters farther than I could, more swift on the waves, nor would I from him go. Then we 2 companions stayed in the ocean 5 nights together, till the currents did part us, the weltering waters weathers the bleakest, and nethermost night and north wind whistled. Fierce in our faces fell were the billows, the mere fish's mood was mightily ruffled. And there against foemen my firm-knotted corslet, hand-jointed, hardy help did afford me. My battle-sark braided, brilliantly gilded, lay on my bosom. To the bottom then dragged me, a hateful fiend scather, seized me and held me grim in his grapple. 'Twas granted me nathless, to pierce the monster with the point of my weapon. My obedient blade battle oft carried, the mighty mare creature by means of my hand blow. That's the end of part 9. So, this is sort of what you expect. You got the hero showing up, and then one of the locals being like, hey, you know what, I've heard rumors about you, you're not quite so big as you think you are. And Beowulf has to counter back with, oh, no, don't worry. I wasn't beating that race, I was holding back to make sure that my friend wasn't going to get drowned. And then I was attacked by a sea monster, and it took my weapon, so I had to kill it barehanded. Yeah. Go off, King. Alright. Part 10. Beowulf silences Ulfeth. Glee is high. So ill-meaning enemies often did cause me sorrow the sorest. I served them in quittance with my dear beloved sword, as in sooth it was fitting. They missed the pleasure of feasting abundantly. Ill-doers of evil, of eating my body, of surrounding the banquet deep in the ocean, but wounded with edges early in morning, they were stretched high on the strand of the ocean. Put to sleep with the sword, that sea-going travellers no longer thereafter were hindered from sailing. The foam-dashing currents came light from the east, God's beautiful beacon, the billows subsided, that well I could see the nesses projecting, the blustering crags. Weird often saveth the undoomed hero, if doughty his valor. But me did it fortune to fell with my weapon 9 of the knickers of night struggle harder, neath dome of the heaven heard I but rarely, nor of wight more woeful in the waves of the ocean. Yet I escaped with my life the grip of the monsters, wary from travel, then the waters bear me to the land of the Finns. The blood with the current, the weltering waves, not a word hath been told me of deeds so daring done by thee, Ulfeth. And of sword terror none. Never hath Breca at the whole play of battle, nor either of you two, feats so fearless performed with weapons glinting and gleaming. I utter no boasting. Thou, with cold-blooded cruelty, thou killedst thy brothers, thy nearest of kin, thou needs must in hell get direful damnation, though doughty thy wisdom, I tell thee in earnest, offspring of Ecglaf, never had Grendel such numberless horrors, the direful demon, done to thy liege lord, harrying in hero, if thy heart were as sturdy, thy mood as ferocious as thou dost describe them. He hath found out fully that the fierce burning hatred, the edge battle eager of all your kindred of the victory sildings need little dismay him. Oaths he exacteth, not any he spares of the folk of the Danemen, but fighteth with pleasure, killeth and feasteth, no contest expecteth from spear Danish people. But the prowess and battle of the earls of the Geatmen early shall venture to give him a grapple. He shall go who is able bravely to banquet, when the bright light of morning, which the second day bringeth the sun in its ether robes o'er the children of men, shines from the southward. Then the grey-haired, war-famed giver of treasure was blithesome and joyous. The bright Danish ruler expected assistance. The people's protector heard from Beowulf his bold resolution. There was the laughter of heroes, loud was the clatter. The words were winsome. Wealhtheow advanced then, consort of Hrothgar, of courtesy mindful. Gold-decked saluted the men in the building, and the freeborn woman the beaker presented to the lord of the kingdom, first of the East Danes. Bade him be blithesome when beer was a-flowing. Leaf to his liegeman he lustily tasted, of banquet and beaker battle-famed ruler. The Helmingish lady then graciously circled, mid all the liegemen lesser and greater. Treasure cups tendered, till time was afforded, that the decorous-mooded, diademed folk queen might bear to Beowulf the bumper o'er-running. She greeted the great prince, God she did thank, most wise in her words, that her wish was accomplished, that in any of earlmen she ever should look for solace in sorrow, he accepted the beaker. Battle-bold warrior at Wealhtheow's giving, then, equipped for combat, quoth he in measures, Beowulf spake, offspring of Ecglaf. I purposed in spirit, when I mounted the ocean, when I boarded my boat with a band of my liegemen, I would work to the fullest the will of your people, or in the foe's clutches fastened fall in the battle. Deeds I shall do of daring and prowess, or the last of my life days live in this mead hall. These words to the lady were welcome and pleasing. The boast of the Geatmen, with gold trappings broidered, went the freeborn folk queen, her fond lord to sit by. Then again, as of yore was heard in the building, courtly discussion, conquerors shouting, heroes were happy, till Healfdene's son would go to his slumber to seek for refreshing. For the horrid hell monster in the hall building knew he a fight was determined, since the light of the sun they no longer could see, and lowering darkness o'er all had descended, and dark under heaven shadowy shapes came shying around them. The liegemen all rose then, one saluted the other, Hrothgar, Beowulf in rhythmical measures, wishing him well, and, though a sail horn giving to his care and keeping, quoth he, departing, Not to any one else have I ever entrusted, but thee, and thee only, the whole of the Danemen, since high I could heave my hand and my buckler, take thou in charge now the noblest of houses. Be mindful of honour, exhibiting prowess, watch 'gainst the foeman. Thou shalt want no enjoyments. Survive thou safely, adventure so glorious. And that is the end of part 10. So, that was the Beowulf's response to being heckled, and he shut him up well and good. And after that, they thought, okay, with that roasting out of the way, let's all get drunk. And so they did. A good time was had, and the rabble-rousing from the hall after dark let Grendel know that he had some killing to do tonight. So, it's coming up now. The Lord has gone to bed and left Beowulf alone with his men in the hall to tend to their foe. Let's get through one more part, and we'll see where this leaves us before we take a short break. Part 11. All sleep, save one. Then Hrothgar departed, his earl throng attending him, folk lord of Sildings forth from the building. The war chieftain wished then Wealhtheow to look for the queen for a bedmate. To keep away Grendel, the glory of kings had given a hall watch. As men heard recounted, for the king of the Danemen he did special service, gave the giant a watcher, and the prince of the gatemen implicitly trusted his warlike strength and the wielder's protection. His armor of iron off him he did then, his helmet from his head to his henchman committed, his chaste-handled chain-sword choicest of weapons, and bade him bide with his battle equipments. The good one then uttered words of defiance. Beowulf, gateman, ere his bed he upmounted, I hold me no meaner in matters of prowess, in warlike achievements, than Grendel does himself. Hence I seek not with sword edge to soothe him to slumber, of life to bereave him, though well I am able. No battle skill has he, that blows he should strike me, to shatter my shield, though sure he is mighty. In strife and destruction, but struggling by night, we shall do without hedges. Dare he to look for weaponless warfare and wise-mooded father. The glory apportion, God ever holy, on which hand soever to him seemeth proper. Then the brave-mooded hero bent to his slumber. The pillow received the cheek of the noble, and many a martial mere-thane attending sank to his slumber. Seemed it unlikely that ever thereafter any should hope to be happy at home, hero friends visit, or the lordly troop castle where he lived from his childhood. They had heard how slaughter had snatched from the wine-hall, how had recently ravished of the race of the Sildings too many by far. But the Lord to them granted the weaving of war speed, to Vader's heroes aid and comfort, that every opponent by one man's war might they worsted and vanquished. By the might of himself the truth is established, that God Almighty hath governed for ages kindreds and nations a night very lurid. The traveller at twilight came tramping and striding. The warriors were sleeping, who should watch the horned building. Only one excepted, mid-earthman was established. The impeccable foeman was powerless to hurl them to the land of shadows if the Lord were unwilling. But serving as warder, in terror to foemen, he angrily bided the issue of battle. All right, so Beowulf and his buds, Beowulf and his bevy of bros, have laid down to sleep. They left one man to watch, and Grendel is lurking and is looking for his own hunt. So, let's take a short break now. We are right at the hour mark, and we'll see when we get back, presumably, the confrontation between Beowulf and Grendel in the halls of Hero. Alright, be back in just a little bit. I need to top up my drink and stretch the legs a little bit. We'll be back to continue in just a few minutes. Alright, we are back. So, did a little bit of looking ahead, and it looks like this is definitely going to shape up to be a 2-day read. So, we'll aim to be about halfway through the book by the end of tonight, and then that'll give us, hopefully, a good bit of direction and planning for tomorrow, and that'll lead us through the weekend and get us safely into December. And we know what comes in December, don't we? Yes, it is that time. So we're having a little bit of fun with blood and battle tonight. And tomorrow we'll continue with, battle and blade. And then we'll see what nicer things we have in store for the rest of the month. Unless we want to bring in some alternative seasonal selections. Krampus, anyone? Alright, so, until then, let's go ahead and continue tonight, as we do still have a fair bit of excitement ahead of us with Beowulf, and the upcoming clash with Grendel. So, let's resume now with part 12, Grendel and Beowulf. Neath the cloudy cliffs came from the moor then Grendel going. God's anger bare he. The monster intended someone of earthmen in the hall building grand to entrap and make way with. He went under welkin where well he knew of the wine joyous building, brilliant with plating, gold hall of earthmen. Not the earliest occasion he, the hope and manner of Hrothgar had sought. Ne'er found he in life days later nor earlier hardier hero, whole thanes more sturdy. Then came to the building the warrior marching, bereft of his joyance, the door quickly opened, on fire hinges fastened, when his fingers had touched it. The fell one had flung then his fury so bitter, opened the entrance. Early thereafter the foeman trod the shining hall pavement. Strode he angrily. From the eyes of him glimmered a lustre unlovely, likest to fire. He beheld in the hall the heroes in numbers, a circle of kinsmen sleeping together. A throng of thanemen, then his thoughts were exultant. He minded to sunder from each of the thanemen the life from his body. Horrible demon, ere morning came, since fate had allowed him the prospect of plenty. Providence willed not to permit him any more of men under heaven to eat in the night's time. Hygelac's kinsman great sorrow endured how the dire-mooted creature in unlooked-for assaults were likely to bear them. No thought had the monster of deferring the matter. But on earliest occasion he quickly laid hold of a soldier asleep, suddenly tore him, bit his bone prison, the blood drank in currents. Swallowed in mouthfuls, he soon had the dead man's feet and hands too eaten entirely. Nearer he strode then, the stout-hearted warrior snatched as he slumbered, seizing with hand grip forward the foeman. Foined with his hand, caught he quickly the cunning deviser. On his elbow he rested, this early discovered the master of malice, that in Middle-earth's regions, neath the whole of the heavens, no hand grapple greater in any man else had he ever encountered. Fearful in spirit, faint-mooded waxed he, not off could he betake him. Death he was pondering, would fly to his covert, seek the devil's assembly. His calling no more was the same he had followed. Long in his lifetime the liege kinsman worthy of Hygelac minded his speech of the evening. Stood he up straight, and stoutly did seize him. His fingers crackled. The giant was outward. The earl stepped farther. The famous one minded to flee away farther if he found an occasion. And off and away, avoiding delay, to fly to the fen moors, he fully was ware of the strength of his grapple in the grip of the foeman. 'Twas an ill-taken journey that the injury-bringing Harryman Harmer to Harrow wandered. The palace re-echoed to all the Danemen, dwellers in castle, to each of the bold ones earlman was terror. Angry they both were, arch warders raging rattled the building. 'Twas a marvellous wonder that the wine hall withstood then the bold in battle, bent not to earthward. Excellent earth hall, but within and without it was fastened so firmly in fetters of iron by the art of the armourer. Off from the sill there bent mead benches many, as men have informed me, adorned with goldwork, where grim ones did struggle. The Silding wise men weened ne'er before that by might and main strength a man under heaven might break it in pieces, bone-decked, resplendent, crush it by cunning, unless clutch of the fire in smoke should consume it. The sound mounted upward, novel enough on the North Danes fastened, a terror of anguish on all of the men there, who heard from the wall the weeping and plaining, the song of defeat from the foeman of heaven, heard him hymns of horror howl, and his sorrow hell-bound bewailing, he held him too firmly, who was strongest of main strength of men of that era. That's the end of part 12. I love all the alliteration here. You have to appreciate when it's like 4 or 5 words long. It's like, okay, good on you, translator. Good on you. Part 13. For no cause whatever would the earlman's defender leave in life joys the loathsome newcomer. He deemed his existence utterly useless. To men under heaven, many a noble, a Beowulf brandished, his battle sword old, would guard the life of his lord and protector. That far famous chieftain, if able to do so. While waging the warfare, this wist they but little, brave battle thanes, while his body intending to slit into slivers, and seeking his spirit, that the relentless foeman, nor finest of weapons of all on the earth, nor any of war-bills, was willing to injure. But weapons of victory, swords and such like, he had sworn to dispense with. His death, at that time, must prove to be wretched, and the faraway spirit widely should journey into enemy's power. This plainly he saw then, who with mirth of mood malice no little had wrought in the past on the race of the earthmen. To God he was hostile, that his body would fail him. But Hygelac's hardy henchmen and kinsmen held him by the hand. Hateful to other was each one if living. A body wound suffered, the direful demons, damage incurable was seen on his shoulder, his sinews were shivered, his body did burst. To Beowulf was given glory in battle. Grendel from thenceward must flee and hide in the fen cliffs and marshes. Sick unto death, his dwelling must look for, unwinsome and woeful. He wist the more fully, the end of his earthly existence was nearing. His life days' limits at last for the Danemen, when the slaughter was over. Their wish was accomplished. The comer from far land had cleansed then of evil, wise and valiant, the war hall of Hrothgar, saved it from violence. He joyed in the night work, in repute for prowess, the prince of the gatemen for the East Danish people his boast had accomplished, bettered their burdensome bale sorrows fully, the craft-begot devil they erstwhile had suffered, and were forced to endure, from crushing oppression, their manifold misery. 'Twas manifest token, when the hero in battle, the hand suspended, the arm and the shoulder, there was all of the claw of Grendel together, neath great stretching hall roof. And thus ends chapter 13, Grendel is vanquished. So, there was a lot going on in that one. There was Grendel came in and they started fighting, he and Beowulf, and it was let loose there that Grendel was immune to weapons. So, it's a good thing that that Beowulf decided that it was, the manly thing to just wrestle him down in hand-to-hand combat, rather than to rely on a sword. There's no way he could have known. It's just, some nice little bit of serendipitous chance and providence that the greatest wrestler in the world is the only one who actually can hurt him. But you know what? It works. And the fact that he just ripped Grendel's arm clean out of the socket is kind of badass. Let's be real here. So that's the sort of wrestling that does not show up on Monday Night Raw. Or whatever Raw is. Alright. Continuing with Chapter 14, Rejoicing of the Danes. In the mist of the morning, many a warrior stood round the gift hall, as the story is told me. Folk princes fared then from far and from near, through long-stretching journeys to look at the wonder, the footprints of the foeman. Few of the warriors who gazed at the foot tracks of the inglorious creature, his parting from life pained very deeply. How weary in spirit, off from those regions, in combats conquered, he carried his traces, fated and flying, to the flood of the Knickers. There, in bloody billows, bubbled the currents. The angry eddy was everywhere mingled, and seething with gore, welling with sword blood, he, death-doomed, had hid him. When, reaved of his joyance, he laid down his life in the lair he had fled to. His heathenish spirit, where hell did receive him, thence the friends from old backward turned them. And many a younker from merry adventure, striding their stallions stout from the seaward, heroes on horses, there were heard very often Beowulf's praises. Many often asserted that neither south nor north in the circuit of waters, or outstretching earth plain, none other was better, mid bearers of war shields, more worthy to govern, neath the arch of the ether, nor not any, however, against the friend Lord muttered, mocking words uttered. Of Hrothgar, the gracious, a good king he. Oft the famed ones permitted their fallow-skinned horses to run in rivalry, racing and chasing, where the field ways appeared to them fair and inviting. Known for their excellence, oft a thane of the folklore, a man of celebrity, mindful of rhythms, who ancient traditions treasured in memory, new word groups found properly bound. The bard after 'gan then Beowulf's adventure, wisely to tell of, and words that were clever, to utter skillfully, earnestly speaking, everything told he that he heard, as to Sigmund's mighty achievements. Many things hidden, the strife of the Velsing, the wide-going ventures, the children of men knew of but little. The feud and the fury, but Fitela with him, then such like matters he minded to speak of, uncle to nephew, as in every contention. Each to other was ever devoted, a numerous host of the race of the Scathers they had slain with the sword edge. To Sigmund accrued then no little of glory, when his life days were over, since he sturdy in struggle had destroyed the great dragon, the hoard treasure's keeper, neath the hoar greyish stone. He, the son of Atheling, unaided adventured the perilous project, not present was Fitela. Yet the fortune befell him of forcing his weapon through the marvellous dragon, that it stood in the wall, well-honoured weapon, the worm was slaughtered. The great one had gained then by his glorious achievement to reap from the ring hoard richest enjoyment. As best it did please him, his vessel he loaded, shining ornaments on the ship's bosom carried, kinsman of Wales, the drake in heat melted, he was farthest famed of fugitive pilgrims. Mid wide scattered world folk for works of great prowess, war troopers shelter, hence waxed he in honour. Afterward Hermod's hero strength failed him. His vigour and valour mid venomous haters, to the hands of foemen he was foully delivered. Oft driven early, agony billows oppressed him too long. To his people he became then, to all the Aethelings, an ever great burden. And the daring one's journey in days of yore, many wise men were wont to deplore, such as hoped he would bring them help in their sorrow, that the son of their ruler should rise into power, holding the headship held by his fathers. Should govern the people, the gold hoard and burrow, the kingdom of heroes, the realm of the Scyldings. He to all men became then far more beloved, Hygelac kinsman to kindreds and races. To his friends much dearer, him malice assaulted. Oft running and racing on roadsters they measured the dun-colored highways. Then the light of the morning was hurried and hastened, went henchmen in numbers to the beautiful building, bold ones in spirit to look at the wonder, the liege lord himself. Then from his wife bower wending, worn of treasures glorious, trod with troopers unnumbered, famed for his virtues, and with him the queen wife measured the mead ways with maidens attending. That brings us to the end of part 14. So that was a lot of retelling of the story, like bards retelling the story of Beowulf and his battle with Grendel, and framing it in contrast with other famous heroes. We got Sigmund, Siegfried, as a common counterpoint there. So so everyone is still pumping up Beowulf because, I mean, he's the hero of the day. Might as well, right? And then tie him back to heroes from beyond time. I had to wonder for a minute whether we were reading like Der Nibelung. Alright. So, part 15. Hrothgar's gratitude. Hrothgar discoursed to the hall building when he stood by the pillar, saw the steep rising hall roof gleaming with gold gems, and Grendel his hand there. For the sight we behold now, thanks to the wielder, early be offered, much evil I bided, snaring from Grendel God can e'er accomplish, wonder on wonder wielder of glory. But lately I reckoned ne'er under heaven comfort to gain me for any of sorrows, while the handsomest of houses, horrid with bloodstain, gory uptowered, grief had oft frighted. Each of the wise ones who weened not that ever the full troops' defences 'gainst foes they should strengthen. 'Gainst sprites and monsters, through the might of the wielder, a doughty retainer hath a deed now accomplished, while erstwhile we all with our excellent wisdom failed to perform, may affirm very truly, what woman soever in all of the nations gave birth to the child, if yet she surviveth, that the long-ruling lord was lavish to herward in the birth of the bairn. Now, Beowulf, dear, most excellent hero, I love thee in spirit, as bairn of my body. Bear well henceforward the relationship new. No lack shall befall thee of earth joys any I ever can give thee. Full often for lesser service I've given, hero less hardy hoard treasure precious. To a weaker in war strife, by works of distinction thou hast gained for thyself now that thy glory shall flourish for ever and ever. The all-ruler quite thee with good from his hand as he hitherto did thee. Beowulf answered Ecgtheow's offspring, that labor of glory most gladly achieved we. The combat accomplished, unquailing we ventured. The enemy's grapple I would grant it much rather thou wert able to look at the creature in person, faint and appalling the foe in his trappings. On murder bed quickly I minded to bind him, with firm holding fetters that forced by my grapple, lo, he should lie in earth, in life and death struggle. Lest his body escape, I was wholly unable. since God did not will it to keep him from going, not held him that firmly, hated opposer. Too swift was the foeman, yet safety regarding, he suffered his hand behind him to linger, his arm and shoulder to act as a watcher. No shadow of solace the woe-begone creature found him there nathless. The hated destroyer liveth no longer, lashed for his evils. But sorrow hath seized him, in snare meshes hath him, close in its clutches, keepeth him writhing. In baleful bonds there banished for evil, the man shall wait for the mighty tribunal, how the God of glory shall give him his earnings. Then the soldier kept silent, son of old Eckloff, from boasting and bragging of battle achievements, since the princes beheld there the hand that depended neath the lofty hall timbers by the might of the noblemen, each one before him the enemy's fingers, each fingernail strong steel most resembled. The heathen one's hand spur, the hero in battle's claw most uncanny, quoth they, agreeing that not any excellent edges of brave ones was willing to touch him. The terrible creature's battle hand bloody, to bear away from him. That brings us to the end of part 15. So, the Hrothgar was laying it on a little thick, but you know what? Worth. Basically, he just said to Beowulf, praise your mother, give her all the blessings for bringing you into the world, and you might as well be a son to me. And then all through that, all the other people around were, well, Beowulf himself was like, all right, I wish I could have actually killed him, but you know what? That was enough. We know he's dead. He bled out from that. There's no way he survived that. But I wish I could have kept him here. And meanwhile, the people, if you remember Ulfrith, the braggart who was trying to talk down to Beowulf when they showed up and were starting to get drinking, he's like, ooh, I'm gonna be real quiet now. I'm gonna not say a damn thing, because you do not want to piss off the big B. Yeah. Alright, part 16. Hrothgar lavishes gifts upon his deliverer. Then straight was ordered that Hero inside with hands be embellished, a host of them gathered, of men and women who the wassailing building the guest hall begeared. Gold flashing sparkled webs on the walls then, of wonders a many. To each of the heroes that look on such objects, the beautiful building was broken to pieces, which all within with irons was fastened, its hinges torn off, only the roof was whole and uninjured, when the horrible creature outlawed for evil oft had betaken him, hopeless of living. 'Tis hard to avoid it, whoever will do it. But he doubtless must come to the place awaiting, as Weird hath appointed. Soul-bearers, earth-dwellers, earls under heaven, where bound on its bed his body shall slumber. When feasting is finished, full was the time then that the son of Healfdene went to the building. The excellent Atheling would eat of the banquet. Ne'er heard I that people with hero band larger bear them better towards their bracelet bestower. The laden with glory stooped to the bench then, their kinsmen, companions in plenty were joyful. Many a cupful quaffing complacently. Doughty of spirit, in the high towering palace, Hrothgar and Hrothulf, hero then inside, was filled with friendly ones. Falsehood and treachery the folk Scyldings now no wise did practice. Then the offspring of Healfdene offered to Beowulf a golden standard as reward for the victory. A banner embossed, burning in helmet, many men saw then a song famous weapon. Born for the hero, Beowulf drank of the cup in the building, that treasure bestowing. He needed not blush, for in battle men's presence ne'er heard I that many men on the ale bench in friendlier fashion to their fellows presented 4 bright jewels with gold work embellished. Round the roof of the helmet a head garter outside, braided with wires, with bosses was furnished, that swords for the battle fight hardened might fail boldly to harm him. When the hero proceeded forth against foemen, the defender of earls then commanded that 8 steeds with bridles gold-plated, gleaming, be guided to hallward inside the building. On one of them stood then an art-broidered saddle embellished with jewels. 'Twas the sovereign seat, when the son of King Healfdene was pleased to take part in the play of the edges. The famous one's valor ne'er failed at the front when slain ones were bowing, and to Beowulf granted the prince of the Ingwins power over both. O'er war steeds and weapons bade him well to enjoy them. In so manly a manner the mighty famed chieftain hoard word of heroes with horses and jewels, war storms requited, that none e'er condemneth who willeth to tell truth with full justice. The end of part 16. And that one was all just saying that Hrothgar was not ungrateful. He gave Beowulf good gifts and gave him full-throated thanks. So, as is appropriate for an epic poem like this, the hero is well rewarded, and in this case, pride is not a problem. He's given his just reward, and it has no reason to think poorly on his hosts. I think I need to recalibrate here for a minute. My camera is being a little persnickety here. There we go. All right, let's see. What do we have next? Chapter 17. The Banquet Continued. The Scops' Song of Finn and Hnaef. And the Atheling of Earlman, to each of the heroes who the ways of the waters went with Beowulf, a costly gift token gave on the mead bench, offered an heirloom, and ordered that that man with gold should be paid for, whom Grendel had erstwhile wickedly slaughtered, as he, more of them, had done, had far-seeing God. In the mood of the hero, the fate not averted, the Father then governed all of the earth-dwellers, as he ever is doing. Hence, insight for all men is everywhere fittest, forethought of spirit. Much he shall suffer, of life, and of loathsome, who long in this present useth the world in this woeful existence. There was music and merriment mingling together, touching Healfdene's leader. The joy wood was fingered. I lost my place there. That was a little... that stopped me up there, stumbled up a bit. Measures recited when the singer of Hrothgar on mead bench should mention the merry hall joyance of the kinsmen of Finn. When onset surprised them, the half-Danish hero, Hnaef of the Scyldings, on the field of the Frisians, was fated to perish. Sure, Hildeburh needed not mention approving the faith of the Jutemen, though blameless entirely. When shields were shivered, she was shorn of her darlings, of bairns and brothers they bent to their fate. With war spear wounded, woe was that woman, not causeless lamented the daughter of Hosh. The decree of the wielder when morning light came, and she was 'neath heaven, to behold the destruction of brothers and bairns, where the brightest of earth joys she had hitherto had, all the henchmen of Finn war had off taken, save a handful remaining, that he no wise was able to offer resistance to the onset of Hengist in the parley of battle, nor the wretched remnant to rescue in war from the Earl of the Atheling. But they offered conditions, another great building to fully make ready, a hall and a high seat, that half they might rule with the sons of the Jutemen, and that Folkwalda's son would day after day the Danemen honor. When gifts were giving, and grant of his ring store to Hengist's Earl troop ever so freely of his gold-plated jewels, as he encouraged the Frisians. On the bench of the beer hall, on both sides they swore then a fast-binding compact, Finn unto Hengist. With no thought of revoking, vowed them most solemnly. The woe-begone remnant well to take charge of, his Witan advising, the agreement should no one, by words or works weaken and shatter, by artifice ever injure its value. Though reaved of their ruler, their ring-giver slayer, they followed as vassals, fate so requiring, than if one of the Frisians the quarrel should speak of, in tones that were taunting terrible edges, should cut in requital. Accomplished the oath was, and treasure of gold from the hoard was uplifted. The best of the Scylding braves was then fully prepared for the pile. At the pyre was seen clearly the blood-gory Birnie, the boar with his gilding, the iron-hard swine, aethelings many fatally wounded, no few had been slaughtered. Hildeburh bade them at the burning of Hnaef, the bairn of her bosom to bear to the fire, that his body be burned and borne to the pyre. The woe-stricken woman wept on his shoulder, in measures lamented up-mounted the hero. The greatest of dead fires curled to the welkin, of the hill's front crackled. Heads were a-melting, wound doors bursting while the blood was a-coursing. From body bite fierce the fire devoured them. Greediest of spirits, whom war had oft carried, from both of the peoples their bravest were fallen. So this is a bit of a side story. The bard is singing a song and telling a history and telling a story, and we're getting a story within a story here. An epic within an epic. Part 18. The Finn episode continued. The banquet continues. Then the warriors departed to go to their dwellings, reaved of their friends, Friesland to visit. Their homes in High City, Hengist continued, binding with Finn the blood-tainted winter. Wholly unsundered, of fatherland thought he, though unable to drive the ring-stemmed vessel o'er the ways of the waters, the wave-deeps were tossing. Fought with the wind, winter in ice bonds, closed up the currents, till there came to the dwelling a year in its course. As yet it revolveth, if season propitious, one alway regardeth. World-cheering weathers, then winter was gone. Earth's bosom was lovely. The exile would get him, the guest from the palace, on gruesomest vengeance. He brooded more eager than on overseas journeys, where'er, on set of anger, he were able to accomplish. The bairns of the Jutemen therein to remember, no wise refused he the duties of liegeman. When Hun of the Frisians the battle-sword Lafing, fairest of falcons, friendly did give him. Its enges were famous in folk talk of Jutland, and savage sword fury seized in its clutches. Bold-mooded Finn, where he bode in his palace, when the gruesome grapple of Guthlof and Oslof had mournfully mentioned. The mere journey over, for sorrows half blamed him. The flickering spirit could not bide in his bosom. Then the building was covered with corpses of foemen, and Finn too was slaughtered. The king with his comrades, the queen made a prisoner. The troops of the Scyldings bore to their vessels all that the land king had in his palace. Such trinkets and treasures they took as on searching at Finn's they could find, they ferried to Daneland. The excellent woman on oversea journey led her to their landfolk. The lay was concluded, the gleeman's recital. Shouts again rose then. Bench glee resounded. Bearers then offered wine from wonder vats. Wealhtheow advanced then, going neath golden crown, where the good ones were seated. Uncle and nephew, their peace was yet mutual. True each to the other, and Ulfeth the spokesman sat at the feet of the Lord of the Scyldings. Each trusted his spirit that his mood was courageous, though at fight he had failed in faith to his kinsman. Said the Queen of the Scyldings, My lord and protector, treasure bestower, take thou this beaker. Joyous attend thee, gold friend of heroes, and greet thee, thou gateman, with gracious responses. So ought one to do, be kind to the gateman. In gifts not niggardly, anear and afar now, peace thou enjoyest, report hath informed me, thou'lt have for a bairn the battle-brave hero. Now is hero cleansed, ring palace gleaming, give while thou mayest many regards, and bequeatheth to thy kinsman kingdom and people, on wending thy way to the wielder's splendor. I know, good Hrothulf, that the noble young troopers he'll care for and honor, Lord of the Scyldings. If earth joys thou endest earlier than he doth, I reckon that recompense he'll render with kindness, our offspring and issue, if that all he remember. What favours of yore, when he yet was an infant, we awarded to him for his worship and pleasure. Then she turned by the bench where her sons were carousing, Hrethric and Hrothmund, and the hero's offspring, the war youth together. There the good one was sitting, twixt the brothers twain, Beowulf, Gateman. That's the end of Part 18. And a quick reminder that niggardly is not a bad word. It is to be particularly stingy or the like. No need to censor on that one. It's just an awkwardly sounding word. So, calm down. It's one that doesn't come up very often, and probably for good reason. It sounds far too similar to something that is not to be said. But yes, so that chapter was the bard continuing. Yeah, exactly. There's so many old words that just, it sounds like it should probably be bad, or have some connection to bad words, but entirely different roots, different sources, different everything. It just sounds suspect, and it's usually better just to not tempt fate. But I'm not going to self-censor in the middle of an epic poem when it's an entirely innocuous word. But yeah, so that chapter was more of the poem within a poem, the epic within an epic, and then it finished being... It finished, and then the queen was keeping an eye out and seeing how well everyone was doing, and noticed that Beowulf was sitting between her sons, the princes, and she thought, you know what? They're doing all right. They're having a good time. We're not going to mess with that. And yeah, the English being 3 languages in a trench coat, borrowing whichever words from whichever, using context or not. English is dumb. If I wasn't a native speaker, it would be a trial and a half to pick it up. Glad I'm native. All right, we are nearing the halfway point, so we have probably another 2 chapters or so to get through tonight, and that'll be a good breaking point. So let's continue now with part 19. Beowulf receives further honor, and the glazing continues. A beaker was borne him, and bidding to quaff it, graciously given, and gold that was twisted pleasantly preferred, a pair of armed jewels, rings and corslet of colours the greatest. I've heard of 'neath heaven, of heroes not any, more splendid from jewels have I heard 'neath the welkin, since Hama off bore the Brosingman's necklace. The Brechtiates and jewels from the bright shining city. Eormenric's cunning craftiness fled from, chose gain everlasting. Gaetish Higelac, grandson of Swerting, at last had this jewel, when, tramping 'neath banner the treasure he guarded, the field spoiled defended, Fate oft carried him, when for deeds of daring he endured tribulation. Hate from the Frisians the ornaments bare he, o'er the cup of the currents, costly gem treasures. Mighty folk leader, he fell 'neath his target. The corpse of the king then came into charge of the race of the Frankmen, the mail shirt and collar. Warmen less noble plundered the fallen. When the night was finished, the folk of the gatemen the field of the dead held in possession. The choicest of mead halls with cheering resounded. This isn't the stopping point, but I do want to paint an image that came to me that is probably far, far from the truth, but it amuses me. The storied history of all these gifts that are given to Beowulf for freeing them from Grendel. It would be a fun little quirk if these were just Viking spoils that they got from some random farmer off a coastline. Like, no, it's not storied gems and treasures from kingdoms and such. No, it was just something that a farmer's wife wore and she thought was pretty. Probably made of shell. They ran off with it on one of their raids, and now it's an heirloom for the kingdom. It's probably not that far off, honestly, but it's an interesting mental image. Okay. The choicest of mead halls with cheering resounded, Wealhtheow discoursed. The war troop addressed she. This collar enjoy thou, Beowulf worthy, young man in safety, and use thou this armour, gems of the people, and prosper thou fully. Show thyself sturdy, and be to these liegemen mild with instruction. I'll mind thy requital. Thou hast brought it to pass that far and near, forever and ever, earthmen shall honour thee, even so widely as ocean surroundeth the blustering bluffs. Be, while thou livest, a wealth-blessed atheling. I wish thee most truly jewels and treasure. Be kind to my son, thou living in joyance. Here each of the nobles is true unto other, gentle in spirit, loyal to leader. The liegemen are peaceful, the war troops ready, well-drunken heroes. Do as I bid ye. Then she went to the settle. There was choicest of banquets, wine drank the heroes. Weird they knew not, destiny cruel. As to many an earlman early it happened, when evening had come and Hrothgar had parted, off to his manor, the mighty to slumber. Warriors unnumbered warded the building, as erst they did often. The ale settled bared they, 'twas covered all over with beds and pillows, doomed unto death down to this slumber. Bowed then a beer thane, their battle shields placed they, bright shining targets, up by their heads then. O'er the atheling on ale bench 'twas easy to see there, battle high helmet byrnie of ring mail, and mighty war spear. 'Twas the wont of that people to constantly keep them equipped for the battle, at home or marching in either condition. At seasons just such as necessity ordered, as best for their ruler, that people was worthy. Well, that's an ominous end to that chapter, where thinking, oh, these guys don't even know how bad they're in for it, or what's coming for them. That would be a great spot to end, but we do have a little bit more to get quota in. So, we'll get through another chapter and resolve that little bit of cliffhanger, because it would just be rude, right? Just rude. Alright. We'll get it right. Part 20. The Mother of Grendel. Don't mess with a man's mom. Don't mess with a monster's mom. That's even worse. Oh, hi Zoe. They sank then to slumber. With sorrow one paid for his evening repose, as often betide them. While Grendel was holding the gold-bedecked palace, ill deeds performing, till his end overtook him. Death for his sins. 'Twas seen very clearly, known unto earth folk, that still an avenger outlived the loathed one. Long since the sorrow caused by the struggle, the mother of Grendel, devil-shaped woman, her woe ever minded. This is where the Zemeckis part comes in. Mother of Grendel. Yep, okay. Now I understand. Who was held to inhabit the horrible... Or no, was it the Zemeckis? Or no, this was the live action. That was a little bit more recent, wasn't it? With Angelina Jolie. I think that, yeah. Too many adaptations. I won't say too many, because I'm sure some of them are perfectly fine, and more attention to the classics is always welcome, but... Come on, really? Really? I mix them up, honestly. Devil-shaped woman, her woe ever minded, who was held to inhabit the horrible waters, the cold flowing currents, after Cain had become a slayer, with edges to his one only brother. The son of his sire, he set out then banished. Marked as a murderer, man joys avoiding. Lived in the desert, thence demons unnumbered, fate sent awoke, one of them, Grendel. Sword-cursed, hateful, who at Heorot met with a man that was watching, waiting the struggle, where a horrid one held him with hand grapple sturdy. Nathless he minded the might of his body, the glorious gift God had allowed him, and folk-ruling fathers' favor relied on, his help and his comfort. So he conquered the foeman, the hell spirit humbled, he unhappy departed then, reaved of his joyance, journeying to death haunts. Foeman of man, his mother, moreover, eager and gloomy, was anxious to go on her mournful mission. Mindful of vengeance for the death of her son, she came then to Heorot, where the armored Dane earlmen all through the building were lying in slumber. Soon there became then return to the nobles. When the mother of Grendel entered the folk hall, the fear was less grievous by even so much as the vigor of maidens. War strength of women by warrior is reckoned, when well-carved weapon worked with the hammer, blade very bloody, brave with its edges, strikes down the boar sign that stands on the helmet. Then the earth-edged weapon was heaved in the building. The brand o'er the benches, broad lindens many, hand fast were lifted, for helmet he recked not, for armor net broad, whom terror laid hold of. She went then hastily outward would get her life for to save, when someone did spy her. Soon she had grappled one of the aethelings, fast and firmly, when fenward she hied her, that one to the Hrothgar was lifest of heroes, in rank of retainer, where waters encircle. A mighty shield warrior, whom she murdered at slumber, a broadly famed battle knight. Beowulf was absent, but another apartment was erstwhile devoted to the glory-decked gateman, when gold was distributed. There was hubbub in Heorot, the land that was famous, she grasped in its gore, grief was renewed then. In homes and houses 'twas no happy arrangement, in both of the quarters to barter and purchase, with lives of their friends than the well-aged ruler, the grey-headed war-thane, was woeful in spirit, when his long-trusted liegeman lifeless he knew of, his dearest one gone. Quick from a room was Beowulf brought, brave and triumphant, as day was dawning in the dusk of the morning, when that earlman, champion noble, came with comrades, where the clever one bided, whether God all-gracious would grant him a respite after the woe he had suffered. The war-worthy hero, with a troop of retainers, trod then the pavement. The whole building groaned, till he greeted the wise one. The Earl of the Ingwins asked if the night had fully refreshed him, as fain he would have it. Well, that's an awkward way to wake up in the morning. Find that the monster that you've slain has, mama come a knocking. Such it is. Even monsters have mommies. Alright, let's get through one more chapter, I think, tonight. So, part 21. Hrothgar's account of the monsters. Hrothgar rejoined, helm of the Scyldings, ask not of joyance! Grief is renewed to the folk of Danemon. Dead is Aesir, Erminluf's brother, older than he. My true-hearted counselor, trusty advisor, shoulder companion when fighting in battle. Our heads we protected when troopers were clashing, and heroes were dashing. Such an earl should be ever an erst-worthy atheling, as Aesir proved him. The flickering death spirit became an hero, this his hand-to-hand murderer. I cannot tell whither the cruel one turned, and the carcass exulting, by cramming discovered the quarrel she wrecked him. She wrecked then, that last night, Egon, Grendel thou killest, in gruesomest manner with grim holding clutches, since too long he had lessened my liege troop and wasted my folkmen so foully. He fell in the battle with forfeit of life, and another was followed, a mighty crime worker, her kinsman avenging, and henceforth hath stablished her hatred unyielding, as it well may appear to many liegemen who mourneth in spirit the treasure bestower. Her heavy heart sorrow, the hand is now lifeless, which availed you in every wish that you cherished. Land people, heard I, liegemen, this saying, dwellers in halls, they had seen very often a pair of such mighty march-striding creatures, far-dwelling spirits holding the moorlands. One of them wore, as well they might notice, the image of woman. The other one, wretched, in guise of a man wandered in exile, except he was huger than any of earthmen. Earth-dwelling people entitled him Grendel. In days of yore they know not their father. Where'er ill-going spirits any were born him ever before, they guard the wolf coverts. Land inaccessible, wind-beaten nesses, fearfulest fen deeps, where a flood from the mountains neath mists of the nesses netherward rattles, the stream under earth. Not far is it henceward, measured by mile lengths, that the mere water standeth, with forests hang over, with frost whiting covered, a firm-rooted forest, the floods overshadow. There, ever at night, one an ill-meaning portent. A fire flood may see, mong children of men. None liveth so wise, that what of the bottom, though harassed by hounds the heath-stepper seek for, fly to the forest, firm-antlered he deer, spurred from afar his spirit he yieldeth. His life on the shore, ere in he will venture to cover his head. Uncanny the place is. Thence upward ascendeth the surging of waters, wan to the welkin, when the wind is stirring. The weather's unpleasing, till the air groweth gloomy, and the heavens lower. Now is help begotten from thee and thee only, the abode thou knowest not, the dangerous place where thou art able to meet with the sin-laden hero. Seek, if thou darest, for the feud I will fully fee thee with money, with old-time treasure as erstwhile I did thee, with well-twisted jewels, if away thou shalt get thee. All right. So, that is the end of chapter 21. So, the quest is given. Hrothgar has described the new foe, Grendel's mother, and explained how his men had previously seen two monsters. One that was like a woman, and Grendel himself. And we know that Grendel is gone, and so this murder of the previous night of his nearest retainer must be caused by the mother. And who else to go monster hunting than the chadliest of chads you know, who just saved you and your whole land, Beowulf, the biggest of bees. So, with the quest given, we'll see tomorrow how he ventures on, whether the bigliest of baddies, Beowulf himself, goes out to fight not Angelina Jolie, but Grendel's mother. Alright, that's been an interesting night so far tonight. I enjoyed this quite a lot, actually. It's a nice change of pace from what we've usually done. And yeah, you know, I strive to please. The poetry is not all epic. I have to give a little bit of myself. I do love how many different vibes we can get as in our various readings and our explorations through all sorts of literature. We've got the icky squicky that Genji gave us. We have the wild and whimsical that we had with Oz. And now we've got the epic and Jim Bro fantasy of Beowulf. Like, and that's just the last 3 that we had in a row. Like that, we've hit an entire spectrum of different levels of vibe. And I love it. That's what we're here for. That's why we do this. Because you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of a tired old saying that between the covers of the books are another world to discover, but I mean, it's every bit as true as it is oversaid. So I love what we do here. It's fun. Yeah, reading Rainbow intensifies. Man. Turn on Reading Rainbow and like sitting down with Jordy for some good books. Man, being a kid was awesome in the 80s and 90s. Like, life was good. I guess they're bringing back Reading Rainbow, aren't they? At least I thought they were, which is fantastic. I know PBS is going through a hard spot because of current events, but like, there's still good stuff. All right, guys, we did pretty good on time tonight. We made it we're like 49. No, we're right at about the 50% mark on the book. So we've got another half to get through tomorrow, and we are about spot on time. So let's go ahead and wrap up for now. We'll be back tomorrow night at our normal time. One of the other nice things about what we do around here, we stick to a schedule pretty tightly. Our start time, 8 Eastern. Our end time, about 10 Eastern. Give or take 20, 30 minutes. Either way, depending on the book. So you can set your clock by me with a slight margin of error. So, until then, until tomorrow, let's go ahead and wrap up here. As always, thank you so much for joining us. If you haven't yet, I encourage you to put a like on the stream and maybe subscribe to the channel. Get some reminders of when we go live and let the algorithm know that we're doing some fun things around here. All right. Until next time, until tomorrow, thank you very much and have a wonderful night. Bye now.